One of the leaders of this movement to reform America's finances joins me today from Capitol Hill. The U.S. Republican Congressman from Texas, Ron Paul, has just written a new book, End the Fed, arguing that the Federal Reserve is creating a dangerous financial scenario for the U.S. and the world. Congressman Paul is also a medical doctor who ran twice for President of the United States, in the 2008 election as a Republican and in the 1988 as the nominee of the Libertarian Party. Congressman, thanks for being with us, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
I have to start off by asking, you want to end the Fed. I mean, there's been plenty of movements to audit the Fed, but to end it completely seems a bit harsh. What would you have in its place?
Well, you really don't need anything, and auditing is the first step, and my bill to do that is making great progress here in the House of Representatives. But you really don't need a central bank. The world's had central banks for a long time, and we have a lot of economic problems. The Fed has flunked. We've had it since 1913. They've taken a dollar that was worth $1 then, and now it's worth 4 cents. It's supposed to give us stable prices, and that means prices have gone up significantly. They give us the business cycle. They have an unemployment rate now in the United States, as measured by free market economists, of 20%. So I would say that they have failed. They have also instructed to keep stable interest rates. Interest rates fluctuate between 21% and 1%, or even less than 1%. So as far as their record goes, I don't know how anybody could argue that they've done a good job, or how they could argue that the Federal Reserve deserves to have even more power.
Well, sir, you know, we get our viewers' questions on this, and we had one sent by Facebook to us from Yvonne Renee Davis, who, talking on your argument to scrap the Fed, says, how does Mr. Paul get more support for this powerful assertion that many Americans also subscribe to?
Well, you get support by educating people. I'm as much involved in education as I am in political activity, because I'm not a powerful committee chairman here, and I have nothing to trade with other members to get their vote. But the American people are very frightened, and they're concerned about the value of the money. They're very concerned that they lost a lot of their savings because of the financial crisis. And once they understand that the Federal Reserve has a lot to do with this, they get very concerned. But they became very concerned when they started seeing Congress coming up with programs like the TARP program, where Congress authorized $700 billion. Then we found out not too long after that that there was no monitoring of it, and nobody knows where the money goes. And then when they heard that the Federal Reserve can create money on their own, out of thin air, bail out banks, bail out corporations, make deals with other countries and other central banks, and get involved in international financial organizations, say, whoa, this is too much. So education of the people will wake them up to what needs to be done. It's the support of the people that is behind this movement.
So we had, you know, you talk about ending the Fed now. In terms of, you've explained some of the impact on America, but what about the impact on the global economy? What result would you expect that to have?
Well, hopefully a lot better, because think of the impact of the dollar reserve standard that the world has accepted since 1971. That created the biggest financial bubble in the history of the world. And it has come to an end. Now they're already scurrying around. What are we going to use to replace the dollar? Are we going to use SDRs or Chinese yuan, or are we going to have a basket of currencies? Because they do not believe that the dollar reserve standard is going to resume its role in world affairs once again. So it's not so much wondering what would happen if we get rid of the dollar. It's wondering, you know, figuring out exactly why it was that the dollar reserve standard caused this problem. And now we have to decide what we're going to replace it with, and obviously another paper currency isn't going to do it. You can't paste it together with the euro. The euro is no stronger than the dollar, except, you know, on short-term basis. So one day we'll wake up and find out that it's in the interest of the American people and the financial markets of the world to have a currency you just can't print out of thin air.
Well, Congressman, I know in your book, End the Fed, you talk about honest money connected to the gold standard, but we've reached a situation, of course, where there's not enough gold in the world to support any gold-backed currency, especially the dollar. When you say having to look for an alternative, what do you see as a possible alternative?
Well, I disagree with that there's not enough gold. There's always enough gold as long as you have prices adjust. So if you have a loaf of bread today that costs you $3 and it could cost a dime, all of a sudden you have tremendously expanded the money supply in terms of gold. The purchasing power grows. Gold expands at the rate of 3% per year, exactly the same amount that Milton Friedman wanted to expand the money supply under the monetarism. And expanding the money supply some years 10 and 15%, and recently 100%, and then dropping it down to zero when they want to make a correction, that makes no sense at all. No, that's a red herring to say there's not enough gold in the world. If the purchasing power of gold goes way up, there's an incentive to mine gold. The big reason why nobody wants it is the market decides how much money there should be in the marketplace and what the interest rates should be. Instead, is somebody secretly deciding how much money there should be and who gets to spend it first. This is the reason governments grow, because this is the reason why we've been able to fight all these wars around the world, because we don't have to be responsible. We just go and spend the money and print it. So we monetize the debt and we get ourselves involved overseas, and we get ourselves in great debt here in this country running a welfare state. So those who like big government, the conservatives and liberals, like big government for different reasons, but they have to have the Fed that takes care of them by monetizing the debt.
Well, interestingly enough, sir, you know, the former Malaysian Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, once proposed a new currency he called the Islamic gold dinar, based on pure gold. He did this because of the inherent instability of, or stability of that currency, but also to establish a non-debt-backed currency in line with Islamic law, which avoids charging interest, more ethical sort of investing and so on. How might those Islamic banking principles be applied to US banks? Do you think there's any value in learning from what's been done overseas?
Well, I think the idea of gold is certainly important, and they may have a lot of influence in the future about that. I wouldn't accept the idea that you don't get paid for a time preference. If I loan somebody $100 and they give me $100 back after 1 year, there's no incentive for me to loan the money. So no, I don't believe in this no interest system. I don't think that can work. I understand it's a little more complicated than that, but if somebody wants to work that out in the Islamic world, that's fine with me, but that's not true capitalism, but it's so much better. They wouldn't have inflation, they wouldn't have the distortion of the business cycle, and if it worked for them, so be it.
A couple of viewer questions again for you, sir. Two in a row here. One from Facebook from Tracy McReynolds, who wrote in saying the US central bank was unconstitutional for many reasons that have come to fruition. And Mohammed Awala Ahmed, also via Facebook, wrote in saying, I read on the internet that the Federal Reserve is really not a government-owned organization, as most people are made to believe, but a private company. And is it true that the Federal Reserve is not a bank in the same way that other countries have a central bank?
Well, I can't compare it to all the other central banks. I can talk about what we have here. And there is a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation on that. Some people say it's private. It's not strictly private in the sense of having a private company, but it's very, very secret, run by private individuals for their benefit. So in many ways it's private in that manner. But it is a creature of the government. We had to pass a law, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 created the Federal Reserve, and we're supposed to be responsible for it, and we can end it tomorrow if we wanted to. So it is a government agency, but I like to use the word secret and out of the control by choice, by the congressional choice, that there's no oversight. So that to me is the real problem.
Well, so, you know, it's interesting, you were talking about the bailouts and the way the US economy's been going. When we last spoke, just before the US presidential election, you described the election of Barack Obama as only a change in the engineer of a runaway train. Has he managed to slow down that train at all?
Well, let's see. I'd like to say yes. In rhetoric, the rhetoric is much better. You know, we're going to close down Guantanamo, but we haven't. Oh, we're going to bring our troops home from Iraq. Well, we brought a few home, but we sent more contractors over there before. We have not certainly done any effort at all to resolve the crisis in Afghanistan. More of our people are getting killed, and there are more victims over there than ever before. So I would say that's a mess. I would say that the aggravation going on with us using drones and bombing Pakistan makes no sense. And now we're on the verge of eliciting a conflict with the Iranians over the so-called nuclear power plant that they're working on, a nuclear generation. But no, I would wish we were doing better, but I can't give them too many high marks.
Well, sir, we have more questions for you. We'll look more at foreign policy when we come back. We're going to take a short break now. And as I say, when we return, we'll look at the range of other issues that we've been talking about with US Congressman Ron Paul. We'll be right back.